But while you do that, let's get into our first topic now. And should child benefit be extended, or perhaps you think that they should be scrapped altogether? 0207 862 2222 is the number to give us a ring. Labour are coming under fire for refusing to scrap the two-child limit on benefits if they win the election. Now, the cap restrictions, the cap restricts child tax credit and universal credit to just the first two children in most households. If it's axed, families could claim £3,200 a year per extra child. But Labour say that dealing with child poverty is about more than just so-called handouts. Rishi Sunak is also sticking with the limit, arguing that families on benefits need to make the same financial decisions as working families. However, in recent days, former Conservative Home Secretary Suella Braverman and previous Prime Minister Gordon Brown have spoken out against it. Now, Mr Brown told Sky's Sophy that Labour must help children who have grown up under Tory rule.
Just to be clear, you think that Keir Starmer should commit to scrapping the two-child limit?
I think yes. I think they should do a root and branch review of universal credit, and you've got to look at every aspect of universal credit which has gone wrong. You cannot ignore the future of millions of children in our country without terrible consequences for the future. Thatcher's children, we talked about educational underachievement in the mining areas when there was the collapse of the pits and people saw their aspirations crushed. We're seeing the same thing again. These are austerity's children.
But Wilfred, you actually think you disagree with Gordon Brown and you actually think we're too generous?
I absolutely do think that in this day and age, it is crazy that we are paying people child benefit. Having a child is a choice. We as a society shouldn't then be responsible for a choice that you make. And so therefore, the idea that you have it as a right is what I've got an issue with. I think is that you give benefit where there is a need, not basically because you've just had children. And so it's down to the individual responsibility. We've got to get away from this feeling that you have things by right. The government only intervenes when there's a problem. Well, leave it to the individuals to get on with it.
Parts of the country, we have 1 in 4 children living in poverty. Surely that suggests there is a need.
Okay, well, no, not really, because they're living in poverty. So therefore, if you're living in poverty, there isn't employment. So what we need to look at is this, is that the thing about the politics that we're talking about at the moment and child benefit, it was fine for a bygone age. But the type of work that you can now get is there's far more flexibility, there's far more choice. So what I think that people need to look at is rather than thinking, well, I'm only qualified to do this job, it may be saying that when I have children, I have to change. I have to be more flexible in the type of work that I'm going for so I could work from home. If you think about all the people that could now work from home, those things should be put on the table rather than thinking, I've done a job, therefore I have a child, I can't work. That thinking needs to change.
Wilfred's definitely not on his own on this. You know, many people think if you have a child, pay for it. Why should the state be paying for your children or helping you pay for your children?
Storm, this is a question about not just what we think should happen on an individual level, but truly the heart and the soul of this country. Helping the most vulnerable in our society, providing a welfare state that is not designed to be punitive and to hold people back, but to empower and to hold people and help them up the class and socioeconomic ladder should be our priority. The most vulnerable in our society are the people that will be paying the price for this sort of rhetoric. And I say rhetoric really deliberately. It's really nice to be sat in this warm studio with high-minded people talking about the ethics and the whys and wherefores. But the truth is, this is the difference between a mother having something to eat at the end of the day when her kids have eaten or not. And the statistics
on some occasions.
The statistics don't back at all what Wilfred's saying, not even close, okay? If you take this purely on cold-hearted facts, it's proven that child support, whether it's child benefit, which in fact isn't being affected by these suggestions and by this rule, is fundamental to the development of children. If we're not going to help our children thrive, survive, do well, what are we good for? it is society's responsibility to do the most that they can.
It's interesting that you say that these handouts, if that's what you want to call them, the child benefits,
such a loaded thing to say, isn't
for
it?
the most vulnerable in society. But actually, that threshold has been increased to those that earn £60,000.
Exactly. £60,000.
How is that? People at home will think,
OK, fair enough.
How is that?
That's just crazy, basically. So you could get child benefit earning £60,000 a year. It's a height of madness. You know.
Nelufar.
It isn't the height of madness.
So you think that somebody earning £60,000 a year should be entitled to have child benefit? I don't think so.
Let Nelufar respond.
I think it's important that we put all of these things into context. When you take one benefit, as Wilfred's doing here, and being like, this is terrifying, this is showing that work doesn't pay, all that sort of saber rattling that we often hear about, the threat of having children. I'll point one important fact in this, and something that perhaps you might want to take into consideration. Birth rates in the UK are falling year on year on year on year on year. We need people to have kids. And so proving that if whatever happens, your child will have a minimum safety net is absolutely incremental in breeding the workers that we so need.
OK, we'll go to the calls. Now, Bill from the Wirral, you're up first. What do you think? Should they scrap the cap?
That's quite interesting, scrap the cap.
Good morning, everybody. First point is, I had a vasectomy when I was in my 30s after 2 children. I'm now 76 and I've never regretted it. I believe that population growth is the worst thing environmentally for this planet. We have people coming over here because they can't get a decent living or life standard anywhere else. That's why you have boats and planes bringing people in. By the way, the planes have... You only have to look at the Conservative front bench. And population is the biggest problem we have on this planet at the moment. The biggest environmental...
I hear your point here that actually we don't want more children.
With respect, Bill, with respect, Bill, any of what we've been talking about today applies to British citizens. If you were a refugee to this country, you're not entitled to any benefits. So whether it's child benefits, universal tax credit...
But if you're a migrant, you will.
Not if you're
migrated over here.
You're not entitled to free benefits immediately when you arrive into this country. Not even close.
No, not immediately.
Yep.
But after.
So the fact that this is impacting British people, and we've gone to the extreme right and decided that we're not going to give this to British people because a refugee might come here and take it, is really, really.
I don't think that was necessarily the point, unless I'm wrong, that you were making, Bill. You were saying that we're already filling the positions that we need with migration. Is that right?
I believe we've got. What will happen as we become more with artificial intelligence, we're going to need less people to do these jobs. OK, there will be certain jobs, like picking the fruits off our friends' farms there. We will still be needing people to do jobs, but they are going to be split between the very well-educated and the very low-educated. There's going to be no intermediary in the future.
Oh, so, I mean, it's not the argument that I thought you were going to make there, Bill. It's basically saying that we need to stop having babies, so stop offering any kind of help and actually...
Oh, no. The population growth, the bigger the population we have in our country, the size of the country is not getting any larger, and therefore we're going to have less and less.
Yeah. I mean, we only built...
Availability of facilities
Bill, we've only built houses on 2% of the land, so I don't think the span of the land that we have is the problem. But in order to get economic growth, if that's what you're worried about, and get us out this cost of living crisis and all the other various problems that we have, a lot of people would say we have to increase the labour market, and we have a shortfall in terms of birth rates, so we need to increase that.
Having children should not be political. You can have as many children as you want. I don't have a problem with that. I'm from a family of 8 brothers and sisters, OK? But it's your personal responsibility. That's the clear point. It's not society's. It's not society's. It's not your responsibility. Of
course it is. I don't want your. If you
decide to have 6 or 7 children, you should not then be responsible for paying for those children.
If you fell into hard times, or if something happened to your job, or if you were left, I would want to pay and make sure that you have.
Everybody is happy to look after people when they're in hard times, but you shouldn't have it by right.
But having a child does mean one person is going to be out of work for at least a year.
That's your or that's your decision.
But you're talking about scrapping it completely.
That's also not necessarily true.
No, but
Bill, thank you for your call. Hiba from Birmingham, what's your thoughts on this?
Good morning. I strongly believe what the gentleman said. If you want to have children, it's your responsibility. After 2, no problem. Because when you have 2 children, you know how expensive it is. So why would you have the 3rd, 4th, 5th and expect others? Do you understand? You have a dog, it's your responsibility. That's a family animal. And a cat, not the government. So the 2 adults choose to have the child, yet you expect others. So I strongly agree with what the gentleman said. Your choice, Hiba, your money.
I totally, but I'm going to put 2 points to you. The first one is Nelufar's point that we actually need to increase the birth rate. Our birth rate is falling, and so shouldn't we be helping people have children rather than making it harder for them?
No, because population is just like, it's a say, so, it's this much. That's unpredictable. But your child is your child. We're talking about the finances part. If you want to have children, you look after children. If you are 8, 10...
That's fine, and that's your choice when you initially have the child. But also, let's be realistic about life. Things change. Your partner might die. You might lose your job. You might fall ill. You know, you might hit financial hard times that you didn't see coming. What happens then?
Storm, that's a 10 million question, do you understand? But it's common sense. If you want to have children, they're your children. You don't, then, hold on, when you have children, you don't want to listen to what the government says. You don't want to listen to the social service. You don't want to listen to the teachers because they say, we're the parents. But you're willing to accept the money without any question.
Nelufar?
But you don't want to be told what to do with your child, but you accept it.
Hold on, let Nelufar come in.
Almost everything that we've been discussing so far is about punitive damages or a warning or being quite critical of the parents. This is supposed to be to support a child. I want to draw it always back to the point of these sort of universal tax credits or these child benefits. The point isn't to punish the mother or the father or the parent, indeed, for having the child. It's to allow the child just an entry-level sort of support into the real world. And I want to be clear on one more thing. This word about population growth is the biggest threat to humanity is often bandied about. But what matters isn't just the number of people in this country, but the working age people in this country. And the demography in the United Kingdom is very skewed, Hiba. We need more young people to be able to go into the workforce to support, say, when I get old, to help me with my pension and my lifestyle.
Couldn't we do that with migration and not have to deal with the children element?
It's a great question, and I think it's something that we should ask out loud. But for the children who were born into the UK since 2017, there is a lottery being played by all of us in this country. And we say, if you're the second born, you can have something. Just by the order of your birth, you are disenfranchised by being the third-born child. It always has to go back to who is supporting.
But hold on, is a parent going to say, OK, you're the firstborn, so you get all the financial benefits that the government pay me for the firstborn. You're the second, so you only get a fraction of that. Any sensible parent's just going to divvy that out.
But the government isn't. So I'm going back to the idea of the government is saying for the first 2 kids, we'll give you something. Here is something. There's something that we think that you deserve as part of the safety net of this country. And on the third child, the government goes, deal, tough luck. And so it's this idea that a birth order should be one of the determinants in the outcome of a child's life. I find it really disturbing. Really disturbing.
Hiba, thank you very much for your call. Tina from Glasgow, what's your view when it comes to child benefit? Oh, Tina, you've disappeared. You're probably going to make a cup of tea. When you come back, we'll chat to you then. Sandra from Sheffield, what's your thoughts?
Hello. Well, my answer really is directed to Wilf, who I don't think has thought about this at all, not very well. Wilf, we don't want to go back to the 20s and 30s and 40s and so on, when children really were starving. They didn't have shoes. They had nothing. Now, let's make some progress and just think of it like this. Child benefit is there to as a security thing for mothers, really. That was what it was originally for. Because even though there might be a high earner in the family, they might not give the money to the mother and the children wouldn't have anything. There's a lot of that happens in society. Mm-hmm. And also, who do you think is going to look after you, Wilf, in your old age? it'll be those children because they'll have grown up and they'll train to be nurses, doctors, social workers, street cleaners, fruit pickers, whatever. We have to look after them. We have children into a society.
Let's let Wilfred respond to that.
Look, no one wants to go back to the 40s and 50s where children were really suffering. And part of the problem that I have is a lot of our politics is based on what things were like then. People didn't have choices. Women didn't have choices. They, because we didn't have the pill or the cap and things around, they didn't have those choices. So therefore, the government coming in made sense. But what I'm saying, which is very, very clear now, you're a sensible adult. You're making decisions about, can I afford to have another child? That is your responsibility.
No.
What I'm trying to say...
The majority...
Let me finish. What I'm trying to say is this, is that we have to stop this feeling of entitlement.
You want people to take a little bit of responsibility for decisions.
You're not entitled.
Very quickly, Nelufar, because I really want to get another call in.
Sure. The majority of people who are going to be affected by this are in work. So this isn't anything about making work pay. It's about providing a safety net for children. Children.
Tina from Glasgow, what's your view?
Hi. I think the two-child cap should remain in place.
At 2 children, extended but not scrapped?
I think it should stay in place. I don't think it should be extended. Not scrapped, no, definitely not scrapped.
OK, why not extended then, Tina?
Because of where I work, I kind of know a wee bit about like how this works and how people do tend to play the system a bit.
OK.
So, as you know, it's been mentioned, this cap came into place in 2017. Mm-hmm. There are still a lot of people with so many children still getting paid for 6, 7 children. And I just think there has to be a line drawn.
OK,
and
but Tina, why, as Nelufar would say, why should the children born later suffer? Why should children from bigger families suffer?
Well,
it's a tough one, Tina.
Yeah, because it's kids, right? We want to, Tina. I think it's really interesting hearing you speak because you sound like you know a little bit about this and you might have some background in it, but I always go back to one simple point. If the point of the rule is cruelty or punitive or to teach a person a lesson, I always have to question its morality. So for me, if it's helping literal children, let's find another way to make that 3 billion. There are loads of other places.
I don't think it's punitive or having a go at the child. It's the parent's responsibility.
But the child shouldn't have to suffer.
4, 5 or 6 children.
Interesting. I mean, I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion here. It doesn't look like Labour's changing its stance anytime soon either, or certainly the Conservatives. Tina, thank you for your call. Thanks for all your calls on this. We're having to move on after the break.